to Messy Christian Mamas. We are three Christian moms with a progressive mindset and loving hearts and minds. We are imperfect humans, but we're all loved in God's sight. At some point, we've all felt like the church and Christianity may not have been for us, but God isn't looking for perfection. He's just looking for you.
We are not experts in Christian theology, and we do not represent any particular Christian faith or church. We are simply here to be authentic, and we hope you join us on this journey.
We are going to be talking about God's calling on our lives, and we have a special guest with us today.
Good evening, ladies.
It's Ethan. Yes, he matched 2 out of the 3 requirements for a messy Christian.
Welcome.
Thank you all so much. I'm very excited.
But he's been like our number 1 fan since the very beginning. I think the day 1 that we released a podcast. Day 1, you texted me and said, "Hey, I just listened to the podcast. That was awesome." And I think you were one of the first people to actually say something about it. So we appreciate it.
Well, it's been an exciting adventure so far. I'm glad to be here.
So Ethan is actually our youth director at our church that the 3 of us go to. Well, 4 of us go to. Ethan does go there. He's youth director. And we're going to get into Ethan's calling, but we're going to start kind of with me and Ashley and I, sorry, calling is not grammar, and our callings, and because I'm still looking for my calling. What about you? Do you feel like you found your calling?
Oh, yeah. So teaching for sure is my calling. And I think I'm kind of like a Mr. Rogers kind of character in teaching, that like my job is really, I like shine Christianity through my job. But because I'm a teacher in a public school, I have to keep it, there's separation of church and state, but I still definitely live.
Is there?
But I definitely lean into my Christian values of I am there to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
That is the reason why I'm a teacher, is that I want to make a positive impact on society.
Can you wear a red cardigan when you go into your
I'm often wearing a cardigan.
classroom and
I do have a red one.
some
Yeah.
sneakers? You know why Mr. Rogers always, I'm sorry, this is a tangent, but you know why Mr. Rogers always announced when he was feeding his fish?
What?
A blind girl had written into the show and said that she knew that he had a fish because he talked about it on one of the episodes, but never heard him ever mention feeding the fish. So she was very nervous about this fish. So he started announcing every time he fed the fish so that she wouldn't be worried. Right? Sweetest thing ever.
Mr. Rogers is a ball.
He's awesome.
But then also music. Music is definitely my calling. But I felt I could sing before I could talk. I'm just music is who I am. And that's definitely from God.
You are also Grammy nominated, so.
I was going to say she's such a phenomenal teacher and musician that she was nominated for Grammy twice.
Yeah. Made it the top 25.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I know.
Oh, no, yeah.
Legendary. Makes the rest of us look like.
And then one more, I think I have a calling for little kids, for taking care of little kids and just being sort of like a guardian to them. That's just part of
Well,
who I
that's
am.
good for you.
Because I've got a lot. So yeah.
God was like, I'm glad you feel like that's your calling because here's your 2 youngest and
Right.
you're going to need all the patience in the world. We love them. They're our favorites. I'm not sure what my calling is. I thought teaching was my calling, and then I went into teaching and realized that it was not my calling, or maybe it was just my calling at the wrong time. I was very young when I went into teaching, and I was in a completely different state when I started teaching, and things were just crazy. So now that I look back, I'm like, maybe it just was bad timing. I don't think my patience is any better now, though, so I don't know if necessarily it's something that I need to go back into. But I took a test on giftstest.com
Can I just
for
add to
spiritual
that,
gifts.
That the environment you were teaching in said so much about your heart for kids and your
I loved my school. I loved all my schools.
empathy and just what a beautiful person you are.
Yeah, I loved all my kids. I loved all my schools.
Yeah.
I just couldn't
You weren't in a
stand
supportive environment.
the parents. and the bureaucracy and the red tape. And yeah, American education is really, really difficult. And I think now, especially post-COVID, it's gotten even more difficult.
For underprivileged kids.
Yeah, which is what I worked in all Title I schools. Yeah.
I'm
Ethan,
trying to say things I don't seem irrelevant.
I'm gonna say, Ethan, you can have an opinion. It's fine. We'll just talk over you if we don't agree with it. It's totally fine. Just kidding. We wouldn't do that. So I didn't know what my gifts were. So I took this test, and I'm glad I asked you guys how to say the word, because I thought this word was extortion, and they said no, it's exhortation. How do I say it? Exhortation, which means the gift of exhortation. This is going to be really ironic, though. So it's the divine strength or ability to strengthen, comfort, or urge others through action through written or spoken word and biblical truth. And I'm like, well, spoken word, probably. Yeah. I thought that word was extortion. I was like, I don't think that's a spiritual gift.
So not to be confused with exhortation.
That's a different life. No. So, which is, some could argue that's comfort for some people. I don't know. But that is not how I'm going to spread biblical truth through that. Make sure that was my number one. And then craftsmanship, hospitality, pastored shepherding, and mercy. And so I was like, okay, this is great. What does that all mean?
Slow it down and say those again.
So the E word is my exhortation is number one. Craftsmanship, hospitality, which I think is just being Southern, pastoring and shepherding, and then mercy. But I think mercy is more my empathy than anything else, just because of what I've gone through. But I looked up so it was really cool because it gave you little verses with each of them, and because I didn't know what the E word meant at first, I looked it up. So this is Romans chapter 12, verse 8. It says, if your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. So I like that. And the next verse says, don't just pretend to love others, really love them. Hate what is wrong, hold tightly to what is good. I feel like that's something I think all of us do really well, but I think so. I just have to find the calling that matches talking to people while making crocheted balloon dogs and showing mercy on people.
Well, you feel like you might know a direction you're interested in.
I love doing student ministry. I love doing children's ministry. I don't know if that's, to me, like, I get very nervous because it's very much like teaching. And so I get kind of nervous when I felt the call to go into student ministry when I was at my old church for middle school ministry. And I fought that call so long that it was literally the Holy Spirit, like, shoving me through the doors at Starbucks to, like, go meet with the middle school leader in order to become, and I loved it. I absolutely, I cherish those 3 years that I have with those girls. As far as, like, a leadership role, I get very nervous about it because I just have, like, PTSD of, bureaucracy and parents coming back.
Great at those things, but I'm talking about the other one.
What one?
The other thing that
Crocheting?
No, that you might want to do further into the future once your kid is
Oh,
out of school.
mission work.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I do want to do mission work. I really feel called to do local mission work. And I think that's mostly because I just don't want to travel. But I do want, because I learned so much traveling when I was growing up, I do want my kid to travel more. And I think that would be such a great experience for her to go abroad and do mission work and really learn her privilege. So, because I think that's something that a lot of kids don't understand, is how privileged they are. And so I just want to be able to take it and not be like, and not hold it over her and not be like, look how much better you have it than, there are kids who are suffering. Heck, like in this county, there are kids that are suffering. So, but I want her to understand that, like, we take our privilege even if we're not as privileged as others around us, we still take our gifts of gratitude and give them back. And that is how we show compassion, and that is how we show love, and that's how we show mercy and everything like that. And I feel like the kids that I know who have had parents that really encourage giving back and charity always turn out better. Like, they just turn out nice. They're just nicer kids. Like, they're just the kids you're like, your kid is so great. And the parents are like, we know.
All right. So my calling is definitely a ministry calling, but maybe not traditionally a ministry calling. So music's certainly a part of it, but also my testimony is a part of that. And late one night, it was like 3 a.m. God woke me up, which he does from time to time. I go through seasons where it's like every night for a while, and I've been in that season right now, so I am perpetually exhausted at the moment. But this morning I was awake from 3 a.m. and just got out of bed at 5. She's not like me. But anyway, so God woke me up early one morning and shared with me that most people felt like they were forsaken. And it really broke my heart. And having been one of those people for a while, it really implanted in me a desire to bring more people to God that don't feel like God is for them. Like, not necessarily the traditional Christians, the people who are already subscribed to the idea, who are already going to church, but going out and fishing for those people who might be on the fence or who haven't considered the idea but are looking for something and don't know what that is. One reason, so sometimes I get bummed, Ashley, don't take offense by this, but sometimes I get bummed when like my cursing gets edited out because I have those rough edges, and
It's honest.
Yeah, and I feel like there are a lot of other people out there who might not be listening to the Messy Christian Mamas podcast, in all fairness, that might be more relevant for. Yeah, I don't know. I have plenty of rough edges.
We can have a conversation about it.
I know. No, we can at the same time.
Make a list.
This is what the conversation is, Ashley. Again, we've talked about this, how Kendra waits till she has the mic in order to tell us things, and then we're like, oh. Exactly. I'm waiting for that little like gif of Kendra coming and goes, save it for the podcast.
It's not just that. It's just being in spaces where I don't feel like we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, Kaylee, I think you did. In spaces where you don't feel like your rough edges are welcome.
Yeah.
You know, where you're expected to show up as the perfect Christian person who says the perfect things and has the great manners, and I don't know, like, that's not really me. Like, sure, I have a sweet side to myself too. I have a lot of different facets to myself, but I also have a lot of
You're much more the sour in the Sour Patch Kids than the sweet. And we love you, and people love Sour Patch Kids. They're one of my favorite candies. That's why you're one of my favorite people. That's why you're one of my favorite people.
So some other parts of my calling, I want to help others feel that bliss that I feel when I'm really in the space of the Holy Spirit. When I'm really filled with the Holy Spirit. I want others to feel what that feels like. So I want to help them discover that in themselves. And I want to help them find that peace that surpasses all understanding. Something that I longed for so long, and I feel like I'm finally finding it for myself. And I would love to share that with others too and help them find their way to it through God. Because God is the only way that you can truly discover that.
Yeah.
I've tried a lot of other ways.
Right.
And all of them are unsuccessful.
And detrimental.
And detrimental. Yeah, exactly. And take a long time to work your way back from. So non-traditional. I don't necessarily have a name to put on it right now, but ministry, I think, is the best way to say it. Music's a part of it. Talking is a part of it. And I think pastoring is a part of it. That's all I got.
Not posturing.
The guy with the credentials.
So Ethan, can you just tell us a little bit of your background and your story and like because you had a completely different job before this?
Right. In college, I went and got my bachelor's degree in chemistry, and then I went to get my master's in chemistry. And somewhere in that master's program, I realized for whatever reason, I couldn't do it. So I dropped out of that. But with my background with chemistry and safety with that, I got a job as a health and safety officer at a factory here in Georgia. Just kind of trudging along. I could do the job marginally well enough. Depends on who you ask.
That's comforting knowing that you're a safety officer. That's nice. No one died. It's okay.
We're not using my real name, just. But a few years ago, I was volunteering at this church camp that I've been doing since I was in 7th grade, and I've been going back as staff. And during that experience, I kind of had a revelation in which I realized I didn't like my job. I found no fulfillment within that, and I was just kind of skating along, looking for something that would just maybe pay better, or it could be a stepping stone to something different. But my heart was not in it at all. And then I kind of, that sparked something within me where I was able to look around, where I took a week of vacation just so I could do the summer camp. And that is always one of the happiest weeks of my year. That being involved in that youth ministry specifically is just so, it enlivens me. It's always kind of a rest stop during the middle of my year. And then from there, I talked to pastors and therapists, and then family, and then friends, lots of people. And then that's kind of when I decided, okay, maybe going into rostered ministry as a pastor is a good path for me.
Can you define that for us? What is rostered ministry?
Rostered ministry means that I'm going to go through the years of seminary, and then I'm going, hopefully, right now the plan is to go be a pastor at some church somewhere, or something very similar to that, where I can administer the sacraments of baptism and communion and tend to parish and kind of take a leading role in that ministry somewhere.
And is that what you ultimately want to be, a pastor of a church?
Yes. That is one of the end goals I can see for myself. There are other positions within the church structure which I could also see myself. There is a position at the synod level in which is like the youth leader for the whole synod, which, that kind of seems like...
That'd be so fun.
Associate pastor had a role like that, right? I think didn't she in the Oklahoma...
Oh, the AOKC? I think so. Yeah, because I think she was really heavily involved in the youth ministry.
Yeah, I think she
in
was.
that sit-in.
Yeah, I think she
I don't know much about her past there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm good friends with the one in this synod, so maybe I'll just take a spot in a few years.
That's why you're friends with him? Just
Oh, yeah.
push him out of the way?
Backstab.
Be like, I heard there's another position in this synod in Ethiopia. You should go there.
For a typical student, it would be 3 years of academic study and a year of internship at a school somewhere. I'm only going part-time, so it'll take me probably another year of academic study. So I'm 1 year down and got 4 more years to go.
But you almost had a master's degree. You're used to
I almost had my first master's degree, thanks for reminding me.
You're used to a lot of school.
Yes, and I like school.
And you're still young, so you're not
What's
too
that?
far removed from it.
Yeah, and what's different about this, a year in, I still love school. I still really enjoy going to classes. Whereas last grad school, I was trudging in every day, just doing the bare minimum and not enjoying it too. So the passion is still there after a couple of years of discernment, which I think is a good sign.
That's
Oh,
great.
that's good.
That is a good sign.
Might be a little off topic, but what's your background? Like, what's your religious background?
I'm what they call a cradle Lutheran. So I've been ELCA my whole life.
Oh wow,
Nice.
ELCA specifically too.
Oh
That's
yeah,
great.
especially.
Okay.
So, when you get it right the first time.
You didn't have to go explore like we talked about. You're like, I know, I'm good.
This feels right.
No, your parents still go to the church that you guys grew up in?
That's right.
That's awesome.
Good. My mother wasn't religious growing up. My dad was Methodist. It's just when they came to where I was born, that just happened to be the church that they found welcoming and raised me and my brothers in. So I'm very glad to be in this church.
Now, do any of your brothers have, because you have 4 older brothers, you're poor mom. Do any of them have any, yeah, right? 5 boys. I'm just like, oh man. Your mom is a saint.
You were good.
Do any of them have, all 5?
All 4 of us.
Do any of them have any jobs like in ministry, or are you kind of the only one?
Yeah, so I have one brother, Adam, who on the other side of Atlanta in Alpharetta is also youth director for 2 churches that have a combined youth group. And then I have a brother here in Noonan who's a council member, representative for youth. And then my oldest brother has been on his council in his church up in Tennessee. So we're all very involved in our churches.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think they did all right.
They're proud of you.
In prison for anything bad.
Anything bad?
None of us are going to be rich, though.
Right.
We're not going to be able to support it.
No. I do like how you said, when you said like you were just waiting for something to come along that paid better, and I was like, and then you went into youth ministry.
No, I know that's true, but I love my job. I really
Yeah,
love
and that
it.
definitely makes way more of a difference.
I just gotta get a shirt, Mama. Or father.
Just no, she's a teacher. No, so look, Ethan's the one turning red this episode, actually. Oh, you thought it'd be a good idea coming on the podcast with the 3 of us.
Okay, so I know that you said that your end goal is either a pastor of a church or a position within the synod, right? But what do you hope to accomplish in those goals? So what is it about being a pastor that excites you?
Being with someone, people as they experience some of the highest highs and the lowest lows is really powerful to me. I really just love the human experience, and being able to guide people through that as best I can, and sharing in those experiences is really appealing. And then I think that I have some good insights to people and a good amount of patience to talk to and listen parish as they might hopefully need.
I think as a pastor, that's top of the list.
Yeah, you get that practice with the youth.
I got lots of patience practice with the youth. That's correct.
I was talking about more like listening and responding to them, but sure, patience. We'll go with that.
They're like a little mini church.
They are. I love that because that's exactly what a youth group is. It's a little mini church, and I feel like a lot of times youth programs get overlooked and kind of glossed over, and they're given a very sugar-coated version of the Bible and very sugar-coated view of Christianity. And I really love how it seems like the ELCA in general kind of does a really good job of leaning into actual education of Christianity with the kids. Yeah, we just had our confirmation Sunday. I love. I'll have to watch it because I haven't. I didn't go to the service, but I remember last year was really beautiful. I was there for like some of it at the end.
Video. They had some of the most profound things to say.
I bet that was a good group.
It was my first confirmation from the leadership side, and it is really heartwarming when you can actually see the Spirit moving within them, because they are at the very beginning of their spiritual journeys, where they're really just kind of understanding beyond Jesus loves me, this I know theology.
Yeah.
So when does maybe I should wait till after the podcast, but no, save it for the podcast. So when does this whole confirmand journey start? Does it start in 8th grade? Because Catholics are different. So
yeah, I think it depends on the church and within each denomination. For us, it starts in 6th grade. It's the first year of confirmation, and then it's a 3-year process. The church I grew up in was a 2-year process. So that is very individual to the church itself.
I love that.
So 2 of us have kids that will be coming your way.
I'm very excited.
Well, no, Addie's got one more year. Addie's 4th grade.
Yeah. Oh, she's same age.
Yeah.
But lives.
Yeah.
Well, lives anyway.
You get all 3 of ours for the next 3 years. Like you start with Liv. You get strong conviction Liv, and then you get nice, wonderful peacekeeper Addison, and then you get theatrical, dramatic Charlotte Grace. So we got you covered for the next 3 years. Anytime you want to come back on the podcast and be like, I now have thoughts also on raising girls. And you're gonna get ours teenage year. Yeah, we're gonna have an episode of like Ethan and the youth. And
I love this idea of the mini church too. I love that you said that. I think you guys know I'm obsessed with the idea of Paul's first century church and what that can look like. Paul, I am. Which book am I in? I'm in Ephesians right now, and he's a tough read.
He is
Paul is a
dense.
tough
he's dense.
Yeah. However,
I'm slogging through a little bit.
as I think about the church and some other things, but yeah, I love this idea of that first century church where it is just a small group of people, almost like in a home where everybody contributes, and it almost feels like an AA meeting or something to me. You know, it's,
Interesting comparison.
I think actually the founder of AA is like when you read his book for Alcoholics Anonymous, it very much goes into this spiritual place of contentment and comfort. And I think that really does go back to the beginnings of church and how it is, you know, what you say there stays there. It is a place of trust. It is a place of community. So I think that's, yeah. So I think it's very much, I think he very much had those in his ideas of, after I have gone to AA meetings. It definitely is definitely a place where you walk into, and it's weird because you can go to almost any meeting, any place, and still have the same feeling. It doesn't matter what church it's in. It doesn't matter what community center it's in. It doesn't matter what the people who are there. You always leave with kind of the same feeling of, I'm not alone. There are other people. Yeah, there are other people going through this, and it was hard for me because I was an alcoholic, but they don't really have an anonymous group for what my addiction was. So my therapist was honestly just turned around and was like, these are the ones that are offered in this area. Go to all of them. You don't have to speak. Yeah. You don't have to go. You don't have to get up and say your name or say what you're addicted to. Just listen to the stories. I think you need to understand that you're not alone in this, and that is where I got all of my growth from going to those meetings. Because people are like, oh, you went to AA, but we just saw you drink a margarita. And I was like, I wasn't an alcoholic. I went to AA because they don't have an anonymous for me. Be a weird group. Yeah. Yeah, those are definitely ones that are being held in East Atlanta.
So the comparison back to youth. So I'm curious, in your approach to youth, are they all co-contributors in that youth group experience with you?
We're working at it.
Okay.
I think there's just this first year has been, I think, a lot of laying the trust between us.
Sure.
Especially
Very important.
Especially with the older youth. They've been used to a couple different youth leaders in the past few years, and I'm just this weird guy that just pops in out of nowhere. So I think we have more or less established that, so I'm really hoping for greater bounds in the coming years. Middle schoolers tend to be a little bit more receptive to me because they don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And you're a safe person
I am a
too,
safe
which
person.
is, not what they're maybe seeing every day in their school environment. Ashley, you teach middle school. It's tricky. Yeah.
I think after your big trip this summer, I think that's going to be a huge catalyst for you guys.
Yeah, we're going to the Lutheran National Youth Gathering in New Orleans with.
In July.
Yeah, New Orleans in July.
Look, Ashley volunteered. I was the opposite. I'll just be in the area.
Don't take my door at night.
It'd be like, all the kids are going to be like, where's Miss Ashley?
She gave me this beans.
Yeah, the three of us are not going to be asked to be chaperones on this trip.
It's gonna be interesting because you can't hide that part of New Orleans from these youth.
Oh, they know.
Yeah, every time you walk.
I know. I think it's awesome. I think any type of experience like that, from going back to when I was in youth group, like any type of trip like that and experience, like it's just such a catalyst to like really, yeah, like it's just such like you have so much momentum after that. I remember when I was doing student ministry, like our leadership team was always like, take advantage of this, like take advantage of the high that camp causes, because you want to get this, like you have momentum, so like you want to take advantage of this and you want to keep going. And I mean, that's when we started our Bible study with the girls, was at camp, because we knew that they would buy in at camp, and then it just continued the rest of the year because they were so hyped up about it. So it's like, so I suggest whatever you want to start, start in New Orleans.
Everybody like wants a place to belong to, and especially that age, and like that's really an opportunity for that. Like having a place to belong.
I love our group too, because our youth group, they don't all look alike, which is they're very different and come from different backgrounds, and I like that. They are very diverse.
I'm just trying to foster a variety of ideas. I try not to say this is the truth, this is what happened, or this is what this means. I try to give a broad explanation of ideas and what could have happened, or interpretations, which can be difficult sometimes, because sometimes I do want to just say, here's what this means, and this is why you should be a good person, but I try to not be too prescriptive in my lessons.
Sure. There's so much pastoring, I would imagine. So much.
I think some things you can take a pretty prescriptive stance on. Don't murder. I think that's a pretty. Don't steal.
That's number one.
Don't. Don't murder. Don't steal. Don't extort. Kaylee is the only one who's allowed to have that spiritual gift. My dad is never gonna let me hear the end of that. He has such like my grammar. It's such a like it's been a long running family joke. The things that I don't understand or I can't say. Well, for example, it still comes up to this day. I was 11 years old, and we were in the car, and Bjork came on, and my sister said, "Oh my gosh, I like her. This she sounds so nice." And I was like, "Yeah, she's Norwegian." And my dad turned around and said, "Kaylee, what country is she from?" I said, "Norwega," in absolute seriousness. And my dad nearly crashed the car laughing so hard. And he was like, "Norway. It's Norway." When I became because I was a history major. And so he was like, "Really? You're a history major?" And I was like, ancient times. Oh, yeah. 100%. Well, first we made him listen to the first one because it was so nice to him in the first one, and that bought me a lot of brownie points. So, but they just returned from their cruise, and they listened to my mom confessed and said she was behind, and they had like 3 episodes to catch up on. So they listened to 2 going down to Florida, and then 1 coming up from Florida, which they had just got off their cruise, and so they were listening to Angry at God. So Mom was like, "I felt it," and I was very upset that I was off this cruise. It's like, that's not exactly what we were talking about when we were talking about being angry at God, Mom, but okay.
Do you have any like goals in mind through your calling?
Besides being a pastor.
But what's like the ultimate goal of being a pastor? You know.
Are you okay?
Edit out the silence. Before I give out my profound. I mean, just to have I think a stable and hopefully growing congregation that's happy with me and I'm happy with.
Yeah, I can imagine that's helpful as a pastor.
Yeah. Financially,
Can't-
it's helpful.
I would say you can't please everyone, but you can please a majority.
Certainly not.
Yeah, not a congregation.
No.
I hear some stuff at the staff meetings.
Well, on that note, anything else you want to add, Ethan?
There's this pretty famous quote that I thought was cogent. Let me see. This is from Friedrich Buechner, who was a minister theologian. And this is a very popular quote, but the place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet.
Aw.
So wherever you can find joy and it intersects with what the world needs. So for me, that is ministry, and more specifically youth ministry, which I think our youth need saving.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Otherwise, they end up hot messes like yours truly. So, just saying.
I could have saved you.
Look, you're already doing a much better job than my youth pastor did. The stories. Believe me, you're doing a great job. Was not a high standard.
We're in a mental health epidemic, and I think to fix that, it really starts with our young people.
For sure.
We've got to help them. We've got to equip them with the right tools to understand how to feel good about themselves, right? And to feel good about their future.
Yeah. When they're still able to learn, too, so fast and so quickly, like their brains are still very malleable. Like when you get to your 30s and you've destroyed your brain through drugs and alcohol, and then you try to learn tools, it's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to learn these things when, your brain is healthy and whole.
So
I can
kudos
imagine.
to you. Excited to see all the good work you're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate part is that it manifests years later when they turn into like real adults who vote and have jobs. So we'll see how it turns out.
But they'll remember you.
Oh,
I remember
yes.
my youth pastors. I remember the good ones fondly, and the ones that weren't, I remember them.
I'll shout out my youth leader, Amy Drugmiller. You're cool, and I'm glad that you were my youth leader. I'll send this to you. So.
That's so awesome for her to know that she was an influence, and
Oh yeah, I let her know all the time. We're friends. We still hang out.
that's awesome.
We should all. Do you guys remember youth pastor names that you want to call out?
I do not need to call out mine.
Names.
No.
In general.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm really bad. There was a Young Life leader named Mike, I think. He was really awesome. But that was, we're stretching to 25 years.
Well, I would shout out Steve and Nancy Hollingsworth, who were amazing youth leaders, and they really inspired me to want to do good in this world and be a good person. It took me a little while to get on a good track to do that, I feel like. But they're still doing good work in the world, and their daughter is a phenomenal person as well. So shout out to you guys. Great job.
I did find this quote, and I like this quote because, once again, went on Pinterest and was like, God's calling quotes, and got one with a pretty background and everything, because Pinterest is the best. It says, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I really like that, because I think, especially where I'm sitting right now, where I don't know necessarily what my calling is and what direction it's going to go to, and I'm like, oh, well, even if I think about ministry, and I think about missionary work, and I think about like all of this, and I'm like, God, I'm not qualified for that. And then when I read that, I was like, oh, that's right. God will equip me with whatever I need in order to get the job done if I answer the call. But right now, it just sounds like it's like he's going through a tunnel, like it's a little staticky. I can't really understand what the call is fully. I'm not going to fast. We've talked about this. Look, my A1C levels cannot handle fasting. Me passing out because of an A1C level drop is not going to be the same as you fasting and hearing God's word. I'm going to get to the hospital and they're going to be like, why did you do this? And I'm like, I wanted to see God. And they were like, you were really close. You're almost there. Drink your juice, Shelby. Lord.
On that note, everybody, I hope that you find your calling, and if you're interested in taking that test to find your
Spiritual gifts.
spiritual gifts, we can post that to our social media. And
Thank you, Ethan.
thanks, Ethan.
Thanks, Ethan.
God bless.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Messy Christian Mamas. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Until next time, embrace the mess, share the love, and shine your light bright, my friends.